Pray with us.
One family. If we don't stand, who will? On earth. The wind comes in four corners, four directions, four colors. And death rides on four horsemen. A black snake with some black tanks. How much money do these companies need to make? They could drop their product, but they wanna save a buck. Already extracted billions, when is enough enough? I used to be in the oil fields, getting paid, but I quit, cause oil water I can't drink. Look down and see Kamimi Ladai in the mud. I looked up and told myself that enough's enough. Money does not own my soul, living comfortable. It's not in my plans, my hands in the sand. Some things worth more than gold. Some things they can't be sold. Some things can't be replaced. She's your mother, the fresh water is her veins. What is going on? Have we all lost our minds? Every human needs clean water to survive.
We're sorry. Your call cannot be called.
Martin County Sheriff's Department.
Hi, I need to report an assault.
Okay, where did it occur at?
Standing Rock. There are innocent, unarmed people being attacked with water in militia-style police, firing at point-blank range with high-powered mace on unarmed people. Who protects the people?
Ma'am, yeah, if there's police there, then it has
The police are the ones attacking innocent, unarmed people. So what do we do to stop the police literally hitting people at point-blank range in the face? People can lose eyes. People are going to get hypothermia. People could die. We have elders here. We have children here. We have all ages here. Nobody is armed except for the police. Who protects the people from the police?
Well, I guess if you want to put it up the chain of command, the next person to talk to would be the governor's office.
Love is the strongest, this path is the hardest. But if we were strong enough to do it, we wouldn't see it. Our prayers would not be needed. This movement's very needed. Indigenous wisdom unheeded and sacred things depleted. I'm Mexicano, Malakota, and I'm white too. I'm mixed with everyone, so part of me's just like you. Every group of human beings shares the same stars. And if the earth is not your mother, are you from Mars? Decline since 1492, 500 years and counting. Surviving the genocide they call colonizing my turtle island. What is a fossil fuel? Continued destruction, nothing new. Live in a system, taking our children, shifting their feelings till nothing's true. I had that money in front of me, but I left it. Cause oil money's dirty if my mother gets disrespected. We're disconnected, these times are hectic and feeling heavy. But still we love all living beings and suffer for the many. We are peaceful people, that's why we walk with prayer. And if that wasn't true, we wouldn't be standing here. We're peaceful people who walk with prayer. Turtle Island, have no fear. Despite what they show in the media, we're kind people, hold your ground. Change is coming now.
Pray with us.
All right, welcome to the Stop the Money Pipeline Defund Line 3 campaign launch. We're very excited to have everyone with us this evening. Thank you for joining. I just want to start out by honoring this space and remind everyone to acknowledge the land that you are on. I acknowledge that I am on the land, the traditional homelands of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribes. and everyone should acknowledge the land that they are on as well this evening. So welcome. So we're going to start off tonight by talking a little bit about how can a finance campaign support the front lines. So finance campaigning, it doesn't sound exciting, but it is. A multi-tiered effort is definitely necessary to defeat these pipelines from front lines to advocacy of regulatory bodies and elected officials, to stopping the flow of money so that we can stop the flow of oil. We're really trying to set the stage, and building people power at the grassroots is how we win. Showing up for the front lines, whether it's in person at the front lines or through financial reciprocity, we can support our frontline fighters authentically. Target the banks in your area, call the CEOs, and help us hold the decision makers accountable. Take action from where you are with Stop the Money Pipeline, and together we can defund Line 3. Next slide. So what is Line 3? Line 3 is a proposed pipeline expansion to bring nearly 1 million barrels of tar sands per day from Alberta, Canada to Superior, Wisconsin. It was proposed in 2014 by Enbridge, a Canadian pipeline company responsible for the largest inland oil spill in US history. Enbridge seeks to build a new pipeline corridor through untouched wetlands and the treaty territory of Anishinaabe peoples through the Mississippi River headwaters to the shore of Lake Superior. And you can see it on the map there. And then just for a larger view on the next slide, this is all the pipelines, all the pipeline fights that are going on right now up in this area. You can see Line 3 directly in the middle, Line 5, DAPL, Trans Mountain, and then the Coastal Gas Link, which is also super relevant to this, and Keystone XL, which has currently been struck down. And we're very excited about that. Next slide. With that, I would love to introduce one of my favorite people and my very good friend, Tara Hauska. Tara is a tribal attorney, founder of the GNU Collective, and a former advisor on Native American affairs to Bernie Sanders. She spent 6 months on the front lines fighting the Dakota Access Pipeline and is currently engaged in the movement to defund fossil fuels and a years-long struggle against Enbridge 3 pipeline on the front lines. She is a co-founder of Not Your Mascots, a group committed to positive representation of Native people. Welcome, Tara.
Hey, bonjour, everyone. Am I just talking? Am I just on? Yeah, all right. I see Rachel on there. Rachel Heaton's on this call. One of the co-founders of Mazosca Talks. So one of the folks that threw down real hard on defund DAPL back in the day in 2017 when we were fighting Dakota Access Pipeline on the ground, and we were asking the banks to defund that horrendous project, that horrific project. And here we are all these years later, and the tribe won in court, right? And we're waiting to see what happened. Turns out they were right all along. Tends to be the case, right, with these big companies is you got all these tribal nations saying no, and they just do what they want to do and cause as much destruction as they can. And they are bad actors engaging in a really dirty, dirty business, which is the dirty business of fossil fuels and tar sands expansion. So we're here to talk about the banks and the people behind the industry, and more so just ways to be involved in the Line 3 fight. For those that are following this, or if you're not following this, people have been thrown down real hard. You know, we're at over 100 arrests now. We just had some folks that were actually locked inside of a pipe this morning, and they're actually still there. So that's been one of many, many actions that's happened over the last few months of Enbridge beginning full-on construction during the middle of winter here in northern Minnesota and Anishinaabe territory and Dakota homelands. You know, there's a lot of ways to be involved, and this is one of them. We're in a pandemic, and we recognize that here on the ground. We are always still looking for folks that are willing to come and take a stand with us and to be COVID safe and socially distanced and all those things, and you use your power and use your beautiful voice to give voice to the voiceless. We're fighting for future generations, and we're fighting against climate crisis. The situation is urgent. We have to respond urgently. We're also stuck all in the same cycles of capitalism that everyone else is, right? So we're with GNU Collective, we've been living off the land and harvesting traditional foods and living without running water and electricity for quite some time now. It's been a couple of years of this, but we're pushing folks to think about what it means to live in balance and what it means to live with the earth in a real way and to respond to this urgent problem in a real way. And it doesn't seem like that can happen comfortably. I know you, Amy, were on many lockdowns and all the things when we were throwing down hard on the banks behind DAPL. And that is a perfect intersection of what it looks like when the people on the ground are heard and connected with the people on the inside that are trying to make change. So that push from the people is what gets us the meetings, to get to the decision makers, to make these projects, stop, to defund these projects, to force the industry to reconcile with the fact that it's a dying industry, that it's not safe to bet on fossil fuels any longer, that betting on cultural genocide has never been the right path. And, that we need to look at these banks and say, this is the bad actor. Enbridge is a bad actor. It's responsible for the largest spill in U.S. history inland. It's fighting against 3 different indigenous nations here in northern Minnesota. And it didn't get consent, not through a lot of this territory. And it certainly didn't get consent from the people or from future generations. It didn't get consent from the animals and from the people that are living and breathing and working in these areas and all the people downstream. Line 3 proposes to cross the Mississippi headwaters. That's absolute insanity in the face of climate crisis. 10% expansion of the tar sands. That's what the single project is. So yeah, use your power, use your agency. There's lots of ways to get involved, and this is definitely one of them. They listen to money. They don't listen to morality always, but they listen to money. You can guarantee that all of a sudden we were getting all these callbacks and all these meetings with different banking institutions all over the world, thanks to the hard push of defund DAPL. So that's a very, very powerful way to get involved. I'll tell one quick story just to get a sense, just because it's a good one too. It's a fun one, I swear. All right, so we got these meetings with the Norwegian Oil Fund. Norwegian Oil Fund is one of the biggest funders of fossil fuels in the world. They have $1 trillion portfolio. They are directly involved in the expansion of fossil fuels all over the globe. And so we get this meeting because of all these bank lockdowns, because of all this awareness that was being built around Dakota Access Pipeline. We meet with them once in the spring, and then they invited us to come back out again in the fall. And it was very clear to all of us and to all of them that they had no idea that this was happening. They did not understand the gravity of the situation and what was actually happening to the people based on this, seemingly just numbers and facts on a page, right? It's just a project to them. It's not real people and faces and voices. And after we met with them that second time, they announced that they were looking at pulling out of the fossil fuel industry as a whole. The entire market was like depressed for a couple of days. It was, people lost their minds. They're like, oh my gosh, this is like this massive industry, right? Like this huge, huge portfolio. They walked it back and said, we're gonna pull out of Dakota Access Pipeline, and we're gonna pull out of exploratory projects that are, 100% exploratory. That is what it took to get those meetings and to get that change. Just a concerted effort of a handful of people, but it was all kinds of little handfuls of people all over the place, right? Shutting down Wells Fargo, shutting down Chase, Citi, all these bad actors. That is how we achieve change, is together and using our collective power to do everything we can.
Thank you so much, Tara. And in the chat, we've been popping in links. Definitely follow GNU Collective on Facebook and Twitter, and keep up with all of the amazing actions that have been going on the ground. I know I always love seeing it in my feed when folks are out there just doing the work. It's beautiful. So our next speaker, I would like to introduce Ruth Breach from Rainforest Action Network. Ruth is a senior campaigner for Rainforest Action's climate and energy team. She organizes the corporate accountability campaigns on banks by collaborating with frontline communities impacted by fossil fuels and climate change, and coordinating with grassroots networks across the country to uplift Indigenous rights and end fossil fuel expansion. Welcome, Ruth.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Amy. And also thanks so much, Tara, for your just like unrelenting leadership and conviction, and the fact that you all are doing really hardcore actions right now in sub-zero temperatures. So always looking to you for this incredible leadership. Thanks for that. We are going to pull back up the slides. So I have a few things to talk about that to kind of build on what both Amy was talking about with the front lines and the solidarity of the finance campaigns, and then also what Tara was talking about with the success of the defund DAPL, and really truly what some of the risks are, for the banks. And that's a lot of what we're talking about now is stopping the money pipeline. We need to stop the money pipeline to fossil fuels and stop the money pipeline to the climate destruction. And what we have to do is follow the money to get there. So if you look here, fossil fuel projects, we know that they need these things. We know that they need permits. Those are often from the state, local, federal governments. We know that's happening. Money is coming from banks. This might be like loans, underwriting, credit, and then insurance from insurance companies. And there's a really exciting scope of work that's happening around that's been growing really fast. But today we're focusing on money and the banks. The financial sector has a huge influence on the economy. It has on the markets. We saw this like whole craziness that has happened this past year around the pandemic and what can be happening with the economy. And then we know about stopping the flow of money can delay and stop destructive projects. Tara just brought up an incredible example about the Norwegian pension fund, largest funder of fossil fuels in the world, and they stepped out completely. We've seen these success stories happen, and we know that it is possible. And I think one of the really critical things here is having an Indigenous rights-based framework, because Indigenous rights, Indigenous lands, Indigenous treaty rights is what's going to keep fossil fuels in the ground and keep forests standing. And that is truly like the center of these campaigns where finance campaigns are in essence a like key solidarity campaign. And it adds really strong kind of rootedness and realness to what sometimes economic analysis, which can be numbers and very abstract, and then the environmental and social risk, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Next slide, please. So we know that the banks, they need to manage risk. This is literally part of their job. And if they're not doing that, they're not doing their job. And so sometimes it's part of our job to remind them how to show up. Some of the risks that they have to manage, again, Tara touched on this a little bit. The United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, or UNDRIP, lays out a full guidelines. This is like a multiple page document that has been agreed upon internationally about a framework that includes free, prior, and informed consent. Tara mentioned that not only did 3 tribes, Anishinaabe tribes, not give consent, they are actively legally challenging Enbridge's Line 3. Just on that fact alone, the bank should not be supporting this project, period. So there's a hard stop right there, just one of many. Cultural sites and impacts is another huge critical piece. Tara's told some beautiful stories in the past and have seen her even out harvesting wild rice that is core to the Anishinaabe culture, and that the impacts there. So Enbridge had to change their permitting schedule because so it didn't impact wild rice harvesting season. But because there's so many wetlands and waterways involved, it's hard for them not to be able to impact that. So that's an assessment that the banks need to be looking at that they're not. Escalated protests and actions. Literally, that is all of you. So water protectors, land defenders, anybody that's showing up today to do something about stopping this project, thank you, because this is the work that needs to happen. We are risk. We are collective risk for these banks, just like we saw people locking down for defund DAPL at the different banks for showing up in their home communities. If you weren't able to travel to Standing Rock, you were able to do something, and you're going to hit them in their bottom line. And that's where it hurts for the banks and the financial institutions. Other risks to consider: spills. We know that Enbridge had the largest inland spill for any company in the world. Folks remember Kalamazoo? There's literally still cleaning up the tar sands from that spill. Leaks and accidents. Pipelines leak. It's not if, it's when. It will happen. There will be impacts on the waterways. There will be impacts on the land, and there will be impacts to the climate. And then economic risks. So this is really speaking the language of the companies. I have an article I'm going to share here that these other things don't feel like they make sense. This is what we want to see from them. They recently, Enbridge said that line 3 is now costing them $1.1 billion more because of delays. And I would say a lot of those delays are due to people being locked to pipelines, actions showing up and sub-zero temperatures to cause those delays in construction. Other things we're looking at as it relates to the cost of oil, as we saw in the pandemic, it has been all over the place. And the cost of tar sands is always high because it's such an energy intensive type of refining. So that just always stays high. We literally saw it dip down to almost nothing in 2020. And then we're looking at, again, the overall company financial health. This is the largest project that Enbridge has ever taken on, the Line 3. They were calling it a replacement. This is not a replacement. This is a brand new big ass pipeline, the biggest in the company's history. So keep that in mind. On to our next slide. Awesome. So here's this piece here. The big banks are propping up the fossil fuel industry, and this is who is doing it, and this is how they do it. We've got this credit renewal or credit facility is coming up. It's 2.16, so $2.2 billion for Enbridge. And these are the banks. We know that there's 18 banks, and they have a choice as to whether they renew this credit to Enbridge for $2.2 billion on March 31st. And these are we're going to name the names, and these people have addresses and they have phone numbers, and we're going to find them. So Alec will detail more of that but we're talking about US banks, JP Morgan Chase, Citibank, Bank of America, Canadian banks, Toronto Dominion, which is based in Toronto, but has branches up and down the US East Coast, Union Bank and MUFG in the US and Japan. Also, there's additional Canadian banks. There's European banks. We're reaching out to European allies, Chinese banks, and also additional Japanese banks. I'll link this over here. There's some additional resources if you want to dig down and you like that like nitty gritty data, but there's some good information there, but these are the names. Go ahead to the next slide. So I talked about that credit facility, this $2.2 billion that's going to Enbridge from the banks on March 31st. This is an annual renewal, and it's usually a rubber stamp process. So this is why it's critical that water protectors and land defenders, that we intervene in this process now. We have to let them know how toxic it is and that they have options. They don't have to renew this. Enbridge, the company, this is $2.2 billion for their corporate finance. There is no project finance for Line 3. So these are the bankers of Line 3. Any bank that is supporting Enbridge is supporting Line 3 because it is the company's biggest project in their portfolio. This next slide, and again, remember these logos because these are some of the key banks that are driving these issues that have signed on to support Enbridge. And these banks have customers. They have branches. They have CEOs. So we have access to these folks, and this is a critical point for us to act on. And I think Amy will pass it over to Alec to tell you more about that. But thanks a lot, folks.
Thank you so much, Ruth. And yes, everyone, we will share these slides, and we will share all of the resources in a wrap-up email. And also, that's a lot of this is on the Stop the Money Pipeline website as well. So next, I would like to welcome my wonderful co-coordinator at Stop the Money Pipeline. Please welcome Alec Connon. Alec, in addition to his role at Stop the Money Pipeline, has been organizing with 350 Seattle for the last 6 years, where he has worked with many other folks to help take part in actions that have shut down dozens of bank branches and downtown streets outside of JP Morgan Chase's Pacific Northwest headquarters. Welcome, Alec.
Thank you, Amy. And I see a number of other people calling in from Duwamish territory. So a little shout out to my friends who are also here on Coast Salish and Duwamish land and who have been a part of many of those actions here over the years. And Also, a very special shout out to seeing that Rachel is on the call. Rachel Heaton, as Tara said, one of the founders of Mazasca Talks. If folks have not heard of Mazasca Talks, I would encourage you to follow them on socials. They really help to launch a lot of this work of targeting the banks and targeting the financiers of climate chaos. So yeah, are we going to go back to a screen share for this section? And I'm going to walk through some slides for us. So I'm just going to take about the next 10 minutes or so and walk through the high level campaign overview of what we're planning. As we've heard, it's 43 days until March 31st. So in 43 days time, 18 banks have a very simple decision to make. They either choose to keep funding line 3 or they choose to walk away from line 3. Simple as that. 43 days, they have a decision to make. So our strategy behind this campaign is that between now and March 31st, we're going to support as many people as possible in taking regular action every day to hold those banks accountable and responsible for enabling the building of line 3 through Anishinaabe land. And we're going to also intentionally take up as much time and energy of the CEOs and board members and executives at those banks, the top level decision makers, to make it crystal clear to them that funding line 3 will come with consequences for them. Next slide, please. I just want to touch on the goals of this campaign. The top line goal, everything we're trying to do is we're trying to stop line 3. Defund line 3 is only one strategy to stop line 3. And there are other key strategies that are moving forward in parallel at the same time. There's a legal strategy. As we heard, there's 3 Indigenous nations are in court right now trying to stop the pipeline. There's also Minnesota government agencies, there's youth that are suing to stop the pipeline, and there's a number of environmental organizations. There's also the direct action strategy. As Tara said, there are people literally right now as we're sitting on this call who are locked inside a pipe in sub-zero freezing temperatures. And those are the people that are directly protecting the land and putting their bodies on the line. And that is a super key strategy to stopping the pipeline. And then there's the Biden strategy. President Biden has the power to stop this pipeline. He has the power to revoke key federal permits. And so all of these strategies are moving forward at the same time, and defund line 3 is one part of that broader strategy to stop this historically bad idea. So within that defund line 3, we have some more specific campaign goals that I want to share with all of you as you're participating in this campaign. We want at very least one bank to walk away from this loan. We want at very least one bank to issue a public statement about their concerns about line 3. We also want to create very real brand damage for the banks funding line 3 and for the banks funding fossil fuels more broadly. We also, it's a very real goal of this campaign, is we want to grow the movement to stop line 3. And not just the people working in this campaign, we want to grow the movement of people who are engaging in direct action on the front lines and people who are engaging in the strategy to get President Biden to kill this pipeline. And we also want to raise money for the front lines. We know we can't win this fight without a strong and supported frontline resistance. And so we're trying to raise at very least $10,000 directly for the front lines. Next slide, please. So I want to give folks an overview of how we're going to do that. It's 8 weeks from when we launched this campaign last week until March 31st. Last week was our first action. We asked people to send direct emails to the inboxes of CEOs. More than 8,500 people did so. So every CEO of those 18 banks, as well as a whole bunch of board members and a whole bunch of executives, were opening up their email inboxes and just seeing a wall of emails that said defund line 3. This week, and Amy's going to walk us through this in a little bit, we're going to be generating thousands of phone calls directly to the offices of CEOs. We want their phone ringing every minute. They pick up their phone, they put it down, it rings again, and it's someone shouting at them, telling them to get out of line 3. The week after that, we know that CEOs are busy people, they have calendars, and so we're going to do a calendar jam action, and we're going to have thousands of people send calendar invites to the CEOs, reminding them that on March 31st, it's time to break up with line 3. Then after that, you'll hear in a little bit from Emma about a college campus defund Line 3, stop Line 3 digital rally that's being organized for students across the country. And we're also going to swamp the online review sites of these banks with reviews that expose their complicity in Line 3. This is a tactic we've done before, leaving reviews of bank branches online on online sites. And some of them have been viewed 15,000 or 20,000 times. So it's an easy and great way for us to get more eyeballs on our cause. Next slide, please. And then, of course, we're calling for people to organize and to take action in their community. If you want to go out and organize a protest at a bank branch tomorrow, we encourage you to do so, and encourage you to do as much of that as possible in the next 43 days. But we are looking at organizing a coordinated National Day of Action, in which at some point in early May, the date is still to be determined, but we'll be announcing that really soon. And that we want to pick a day in early March. And we'll be calling for actions across the country, in cities across the country, so we can show up at bank branches and really show our solidarity for the people on the front lines fighting this pipeline. You'll be invited to engage in protests, street demos, and creative actions. And Stop the Money Pipeline will be providing you support in taking actions throughout that. Next slide, please. And at the same time, we're going to be continuing with the digital actions, just keeping up that continual drumbeat so that the executives and the CEOs feel like this is all they're ever hearing about. We're going to do a projection action. We're going to ask for activists around the country to write a Dear Jamie Dimon, defund Line 3 message, take a photo of it, send it to us, and then we'll project it either from iconic buildings across the country or maybe even directly outside the houses of a CEO or executive. So they are looking out their bedroom window and they're seeing a message saying defund Line 3. Then in week 6, we're planning to go after the branch managers. We know it's the executives and CEOs who have the most power, but branch managers are still managerial staff. And so we want hundreds or thousands of branch managers to be hearing from people in their communities, that they're hearing from people walking into their branches and talking about Line 3. And we're hoping that message will trickle up to the decision makers and the executives. Then this is again also TBD, but we're looking at the week before they make their decision. We're looking at a digital rally, an online action hour. And then in the final week, it's a big final push. And we want thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of emails and calls into CEOs, executives, and board members. Next slide, please. And through all of this, we're going to be asking people to donate directly to the front lines. As we've already heard about how important that is, I'm actually going to ask people to do that right now. We've got more than 500 people on this call. If people could go on to this link right now, and if you've got $2, that's awesome. Super appreciate that. If you're in a position of privilege and you've got $50 or $500, or even if you're someone who can afford $5,000, this is one of the best places that you could donate your money to right now. And I asked Cheryl or someone else to please drop that link into the chat box. And if you're in a position to chip in some money, whether it's $1 or $100, please consider doing that before you leave this call. And next slide, please. So now this is really key. If you were kind of like zoning out a little bit as I was talking there, maybe zone back in, because this is the really important part. How do you get involved? So the easiest low bar thing that you can do to get involved is take part in the actions. Every week, we're going to be putting out an action that you can take part in from your own home. We're going to put those out on the Stop the Money Pipeline mailing list, and we're going to post them into the Defund Line 3 Slack channel. And I'll talk about that in a moment, but that's the simplest way. Make those phone calls, send those emails, participate in the actions. Every bit as importantly as organizing in your community. We're hoping that a large number of you in this call are already organizers, or if you're not, if you're activists, then you're willing to step in and start organizing in your community around the call to defund Line 3. And we'll be providing you with action toolkits, sample outreach materials. But if you're part of a climate activist group already, if you're part of a church group or a social club, That's a community you already have, and we want you to start championing this campaign and moving that campaign forward in your own community groups and in your own community, and we want to support you in doing so. Next slide, please. We also want you to plan your own actions. We're not going to plan actions for you in your own community, but we do want people to pick this up and run with it. As you've heard, we're calling for a coordinated National Day of Action. So we're inviting you to team up with other activists in your community, other organisers, and plan a protest at a bank branch near you. And then we're going to be setting up a Defund Line 3 Slack channel. I'm sure many of you have used Slack before. I'm sure many of you probably have not. Slack is a simple and easy to use communications platform. So if you RSVP'd from this call in the next 48 hours, you should receive an invitation to join the Defund Line 3 Slack. And that's going to be a place where we can support one another in this campaign, where we can ask questions, where we can provide you with all the tools and support that you need to organize in your own community around about this campaign. Next slide, please. And so we're actually going to practice taking action together right now. There's a link there, stopthemoneypipeline.com/defund-line-3. If someone could drop that into the chat box. We're actually just going to take a minute and we're going to send an email to the CEOs right now. There's 500 of us on this call. And so if all of us take this action, just take 1 minute to take this action, that means tomorrow when these CEOs come back in, they're going to have 500 fresh emails saying defund line 3. And our digital team has been working with this tool so that we're expecting the emails will not go to any folders that they may have set up, but will go directly into their inboxes. So I want to take a minute and just invite everyone to log on to that link that Amy just shared in the chat box. Type in your name and send an email. It should take you less than 30 seconds. And if we all do that, we're talking about 20 executives, board members, and CEOs who tomorrow morning are going to open their laptops, open their emails, and just see a wall of emails saying defund line 3. And that's 10,400 emails have been sent so far in total, and we can get one more push on this. That is me. Thank you very much for being on the call and for listening for a few minutes, and I'm going to pass it back to Amy.
Thank you so much. We can go to the next slide. Next, I would love to welcome Tasha Martineau. Tasha is a Two-Spirit Indigenous anarchist, Fond du Lac Anishinaabe, co-founder of Gitchagumi Scouts, and founder of Camp Magizi. Welcome, Tasha.
Buju, Tabiki Giza, Skijikwe, Nindishnakas, Nagachi Wanang, and Dunjuba, Magizi Doodum. My name is Tasha Martineau. I am from the Fond du Lac Reservation, and I am the co-founder of Gitchagumi Scouts and founder of Camp Magizi. I just wanted to make an ask of the people here and the people viewing that they call the Carleton County Jail and request the release of one of our warriors. One of our water protectors was arrested last night during an action. They were then drugged by police and placed into a vehicle. We've been unable to make contact with them. They refused to speak to according to the jail, they're refusing to speak to them. There's no mugshot. We haven't been able to contact them. So sorry, my kids are going crazy. I got 4 beautiful babies. We're actually in the middle of a birthday party. Part of trying to organize and also being a mother. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. Life in general is beautiful. But the Carleton County Jail house number, if we could get people to contact that, I'm not even sure what it is right now.
I got it. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you so much. Also, we're asking people to join us on Thursday, if they're able to, at 1720 Big Lake Road, Cloquet, Minnesota, to protest the RBC, which is our enacting governing body, the Reservation Business Committee, in opposition of like the few governing the many. You know, the RBC does not, the Fond du Lac tribe does not have the right to sell out our ceded territories Those belong to all Anishinaabe territories, including the MCT, who is in open opposition of Enbridge Line 3. So we're asking people to join us on that day while women enter in prayer, just to, show support and bear witness, drawing attention to the ongoing corruption of Indigenous politics here on our reservation here in Fond du Lac. Many of us are upset that Fond du Lac took away the voices of the other Anishinaabe nations. And by putting on this event, we are hoping to, just draw awareness to that. Sorry, today's been pretty crazy for me. This is like the third Zoom I've been on. So sorry, everything's so scattered. Also, like, the process of defunding and divesting is, it's exciting, and I want to thank everyone who's doing this type of work. And I want to thank you for all that you do within the fight. Not everyone has to be arrestable, and not everyone has to be frontline in order to be a warrior and in order to stop Line 3. So for those of you who are doing all of this work from home, thank you so much. It's a really good feeling to know that we have support all across the board when it comes to fighting this pipeline, because stopping Line 3 is going to take a lot of, different tactics. And I just want to express my support for all of them. So thank you all for opening up the space, sharing it with me, and being supportive to those of us who are on the front lines. We really couldn't do this work without you, and I appreciate you all so much.
And they would like to know the name of the person that they're calling to get released, if that's available, or they could just say water protector.
We're just saying water protector.
Okay. So for everyone who just asked in the chat, you can call the number that we posted for the Carleton County Jail up there in Carleton, Minnesota, and just ask them to release the water protector, use that kind of language, and also urge them to give that person their constitutional rights to a phone call and the right to counsel. So thank you, Tasha, so much for being here. It is incredibly beautiful to have you here at the same time, being a mom. We all do it, and we appreciate everything that you do for this fight. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your mom time to be here with us. We're very grateful. Next, I would love to welcome my friend Emma. Emma is an amazing aspiring climate justice organizer working to support the movement to stop Line 3, and is going to talk for a few minutes about some ways to get involved in the College Climate Network and the Not My Dirty Money Pledge. So I will pass it to Emma.
Thank you for that, Amy, and thanks to everyone who's spoken so far. Yeah, make sure to call Carleton County on behalf of that water protector, and I hope that they get out safely. That's like making my heart really heavy to hear that that's happening right now. And I want to thank also everyone who's on the call today. There are 500 people joining us to stop Line 3, and that is just incredibly powerful. So thank you all. Like Amy mentioned, I'm a college student and an organizer in the Line 3 movement, and wanted to uplift a couple of upcoming things that are part of the Stop Coalition's work. Thanks for that, Amy. So on March 5th, college students around Minnesota to start, and then now we've invited in people from the College Climate Coalition nationwide and Divest Canada up north, are going to be organizing to call out our institution's investments in Line 3. Because these progressive schools that have values of civic engagement and climate justice and whatever, that are built on stolen land and run on money that was extracted from industry, are also continuing to fund these projects, and that's heinous, and we have to call on them to defund projects like Line 3. So we're going to have a big virtual rally on March 5th. If you're a college organizer looking to plug into the movement and call out your institutions for the way that they contribute to the money pipeline, we'd invite you to join us. And I just have to shout out that one of the water protectors that is still locked down in a pipe with the leadership of the GNU Collective today goes to my college and said today in the statement from GNU Collective, called out our institution for the absurdity that they have to be on the front lines, risking their safety with Indigenous leadership to protest the funding of our institution, right? That is insane. So join us for that day of action. It's going to be a really powerful day, I hope, as part of this campaign. And yeah, shout out to our comrades still holding it down. It's really cold in Minnesota right now, so big love to them for doing that. And then another project, shifting gears, if you would go to the next slide, Amy. That I would also like to mention. Another part of the money pipeline, right? Folks have talked about banks a lot tonight. I just mentioned colleges and how they're invested in line 3. But another powerful part of this funding is the banks that we all choose to keep our money with, right? Because banks spend your money on fossil fuel projects, right? So even if you're an adult with a mortgage and you bank at Wells Fargo, you should move your money. But as a youth organizer with Stop the Money Pipeline, I want to shout out our youth pledge called Not My Dirty Money, where you can sign and say that as a young person, you're not going to start banking with a fossil fuel financiering bank. And that scares these evil bank people because they want your money and they know that people bank long-term with the bank that they open their first account with, right? So by building youth power and saying that we are not going to invest our own money in these economies, in this extraction, in this harm to Indigenous and frontlines communities anymore, we can really threaten those banks and shake their foundations of like how they think they should show up in the world. So I'd invite people to go to that link linked at the bottom and to sign the Not My Dirty Money pledge. And we blasted past it because I was distracted. But if you are interested in your college organizer in joining us, you can join the College Climate Coalition Slack for that day of action on March 5th. So yeah, I think that's all I had to say. Thanks again to everyone that's here. And please call Carleton County on behalf of that water protector. That's insane that the state is like targeting people who are trying to fight for a better world for all of us and are trying to uphold Indigenous rights. So definitely make some time to call on that person's behalf and make sure that the police know that like that doesn't stand on stolen land and it doesn't stand in this movement. So yeah, thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Emma. And yes, I see lots of questions in the chat about where you should bank. Definitely go to the Stop the Money Pipeline website. There are resources there to help you with that. And we can always move our money and not bank with these dirty banks. So those resources are available to you there. So we're gonna go to the next part of this that I'm really excited about. So for the rest of this week, we're gonna be calling Chase executives and board members. So I want to ask everyone on this call to get out your phone and to save this number in your phone. This is Jamie Dimon's number. So his office is closed right now, obviously. It's the evening and he doesn't have a voicemail, but I want to ask that everyone on the call saves this number and promises to call Jamie Dimon's office tomorrow between the hours of 9 to 5 Eastern to demand that they defund line 3. So I hope everyone can do that and show some love in the chat if you will use this number tomorrow to let Jamie Dimon know that he needs to stop funding these pipelines. Next slide. Okay. So we also know that Jamie Dimon isn't the only decision maker at Chase. So this week we're making sure that we swamp the phone lines of other board members and executives as well. So I want to ask if you will all save these 3 numbers in your phone as well and promise not only get to call Jamie Dimon, but to call these other executives tomorrow too. Can you all do that for us? Yes. Awesome. So yes, call Peter, Daniel, and James. And again, we will share these resources out and the call tool will be on our website tomorrow. So you will be able to access information to make these calls during business hours if you want to tomorrow. Next slide. All right. So we're going to do something fun. So everyone has all those 4 phone numbers and we're putting them in the chat and we're going to share them with you. I mean, you're committed to making these calls during the day tomorrow. So we do know though that a number of an executive at Chase that does have a voicemail. So I'm going to call Marianne Lake. She's the CEO of consumer lending at Chase and let her know that her company must walk away from line 3 on March 31st. So we're gonna make the call and we're gonna leave this. So I'm gonna call this 212 for those of you who want to save this 212-270-1212. I'm gonna call and leave her a message and I'm gonna use this awesome call script. Hi, Marianne. My name is Amy and I'm from Stop the Money Pipeline and I'm calling to ask that your bank does not renew its participation in a $2.2 billion loan to Enbridge that is set to expire on March 31st. Right now, Enbridge is trying to build the Line 3 tar sands pipeline. Line 3 would be a disaster for our climate, and it violates Indigenous people's rights. I encourage your company to respect Indigenous rights, protect our climate, and walk away from Enbridge when your current loan with them expires on March 31st. Thank you so much. Bye. See how easy that was? Left a message. And her phone number is right there. So I encourage all of you to make a call and leave a voicemail as well. Because leaving a voicemail tonight means that tomorrow they're going to have to listen to all of these calls. And you can definitely get creative with the message that you left. I used our script tonight so I could show you how easy it is. But sometimes I like to throw in other fun things that I say to these executives when I leave messages. So let's make sure when she comes to work tomorrow that she has a voicemail full of messages telling her that Chase must defund Line 3. So if y'all want to do it right now, actually, we have a couple minutes. Let's pause for 1 minute. Everybody grab their phone and let's make a phone call real quick. 212-270-1212 and call and leave a message for her right now. And I will pause for just a second to let y'all do that. And as you can see also in the chat, Sarah is letting everyone know, who is one of our wonderful Digi folks. Once you have made your call, head over to Twitter and retweet this link that she just shared in the chat. And I hope everybody can call and leave a message tonight. And to keep us on time, I'm going to keep going. So on the next slide, I just want to, and again, we will send these resources out, but you can, we would love it if you guys followed and regularly shared updates from the front lines of the Line 3 fight. Because I mean, I was talking to someone today on a call who had no idea what Line 3 was. And it blew my mind because we're in this, we see it, we know that these things are happening, but not everyone in our network is always aware of these things. So we'll share this out and it has all the links, but definitely start following some of these folks, especially GNU Collective and Camp McGeezy, Stop Line 3, Honor the Earth, and all the folks working so hard, Minnesota 350, everybody out there on the front lines. Next slide. And then we're going to share some resources too. I'm going to share this slide deck here right at the end of this call so you can have all this stuff tonight. And we'll also send it out in an email tomorrow. But you'll have the campaign overview. You'll have the Take Action Toolkit, the donation link. Pass that out through your networks and ask folks to help donate to the front lines. You can sign up to receive emails and action alerts. And then another fun thing I wanted to share tomorrow that is going on tomorrow is there's an art action hosted by Minnesota 350, and we're going to share that link in the chat. But what you do is you make a really cool art piece and then you take a picture with it and you post it to social media with the hashtag #StopLine3. So it's an art storm tomorrow, which is always fun. I love art. That's definitely something I love. So I always like to get involved in those. And it's something easy that you can do from home during COVID. If you can't be out and about and, out in the streets, we can definitely show our love online. So definitely to do that. And then for our wrap up, I'm really, really excited about this. I would love to welcome B from the People's Echo. B is a 21-year-old student artivist and career musician who's passionate about community resiliency, food sovereignty, and climate justice. B studies environmental arts and social practice and deeply believes in the sacred powers that arts and culture hold for storytelling, vision cultivating, and healing. They organized with students at the University of Washington, demanding them to divest their $650 million from fossil fuels, is active with 350 Seattle anti-pipeline campaigns, and is a lead on their artful activism team resisting LNG. And B is one of 6 song catchers in the People's Echo, a song collective that is very near and dear to our hearts, infusing the streets and everyone's hearts with songs and rhythms about our political climate. So I would love to welcome B.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Amy. I'll go ahead and just put those lyrics in the chat here soon. But so much gratitude to all of you speakers and all of the almost 500 participants in this call. That's fantastic. I'm calling in from the homelands of the Duwamish people and the shared waters of the Suquamish, the Tulalip, and the Muckleshoot nations. And yeah, I just would love to share a song tonight in this space that the People's Echo caught, and for you all to carry on with you as you need for grounding, for determination, for courage, for strength, for love, for weaving and remembering why we do what we do. And so as we sing this tonight, you know, I'm thinking of our comrades and relatives currently locked up in the pipeline as a radical act of love, blocking and disrupting such evil. And I'm thinking of our water protector comrades in jail right now. And so would love to sing this for them and honor them tonight and honor their courage with this song. So I will put these lyrics in the chat. And I invite you to, you know, feel the rhythms through your body, sing along if you want, move your body however it needs. Maybe you need to breathe right now. Maybe you want to close your eyes. Maybe you want to have a heart on your hand, in your belly. Maybe you want to stomp your feet, however that wants to come out. I'll go ahead and just sing it through one time, and I'll go through a couple rounds and invite you all to sing along if you feel called. So this song is called Courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the feeling of this fear. Being afraid and standing up anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the feeling of this fear. Being afraid and standing up anyway. One more time. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the feeling of this fear. Being afraid and standing up anyway. Yeah, sending that out to all of you, all of our comrades, everyone taking action this week, sending you courage and love and solidarity together.
Thank you so much, B. That was beautiful and amazing. So we just want to say thank you to everyone. I'm seeing so much love in the chat for so many of these things, and I can't always answer, you know, while we're facilitating. But I do want to shout out that we raised over $10,000 tonight for the front lines while we've been on this call. That is absolutely amazing. So much gratitude to all of you out there watching and donating and supporting the front lines. It is real work, and it is hard, and it is emotional, and we love to take care of our frontline warriors. So I posted the link to the slide deck in the chat. Definitely utilize all of those resources. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We hope you get involved in these amazing actions and help us defund Line 3. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, y'all. Keep Wildman.